something really interesting, guys. Kevin, let me start with you. So Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, very progressive New Yorker, she went on Instagram to ask people, looking at the polls and realizing, like, hey, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that voted for me in my district and also voted for Donald Trump. Why? But like, she asked in a nice way to explain, and some of the response, she's posting the responses, some of them. Quote, it's real simple. Trump and you care for the working class. Quote, I feel that you are both outsiders compared to the rest of D.C. and less establishment. Quote, I support you and did this. Felt like I didn't have much of a choice after Biden's administration. What do you think?
Well, and some of those notes also struck a chord when it comes to authenticity, right? They talked about being authentic candidates for office.
Personally, I don't. I think that a lot of voters really don't like fake people, and they're sick and tired of fake politicians. And so what I actually think is worse is saying something you don't believe. And so if during the entire time in campaign season, you're saying that you're down with trans people or like the LGBT community, and then you lose an election, and then the next day you say all that stuff was wrong. I actually think what people are more upset about is someone was doing something they didn't believe and just saying something. Like, if you actually weren't about that life, why did you campaign as though you were?
All right, guys, so we got to talk about delusional AOC, who is so out of touch with reality that she believes that Tulsi Gabbard is a pro-war cabinet pick from President Trump. Yeah, she actually really believes that Tulsi Gabbard is pro-war. Take a look.
And we haven't even gotten to Tulsi Gabbard potentially having access to national security information. And Russia loves it, loves her.
And I actually think almost more than Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard's appointment is devastating. And Tulsi Gabbard's nomination, as much as she says that she's an anti-war person, she's not.
Yeah.
She supports very pro-war individuals.
Including
abroad.
in Syria.
And let's be very clear, a Tulsi Gabbard nomination is a pro-war nomination globally. Point blank, period.
As is Donald Trump as president of the United States. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Did she ask you why you met with Assad?
No, she didn't. But we had a discussion about that, and she recognized why I met with him and agreed with that meeting, because she knows how important it is that we be willing to meet with adversaries or potential adversaries, not just our friends.
Do you think Assad is our enemy?
If we're serious about the pursuit of peace.
Do you think Assad is our enemy?
Assad is not the enemy of the United States because the Syria pose a direct threat to the United States.
What do you say to Democratic voters who watched you go over there, and what do you say to military members who have been deployed repeatedly in Syria, pushing back against Assad?
People who have been deployed to Syria have been there focused on their mission, which has been to defeat ISIS. Our troops have not gone to Syria to wage yet another costly, destructive regime change war. And many troops I hear from express frustration at the fact that our country continues to wage senseless, costly regime change wars, followed by nation-building missions, leading to situations like we see in Afghanistan. So many examples of our troops being deployed, their lives put on the line, without understanding what the clear mission or objective is and how that mission actually serves the security of the American people in the United States.
Which I think a lot of Americans would agree with you there. But again, going back to Assad is not an enemy. Is he an adversary of the United States?
We have to look to who poses a threat to the United States and the American people.
I understand that, but there are a lot of people who don't pose a direct military threat to the United States who consider themselves to be adversaries of the United States. Vladimir Putin poses or considers America to be an enemy. We consider Russia to be an adversary. I'm just asking you, do you consider Assad to be an adversary of the United States?
When I look at whether it's Syria or Turkey or Russia or China or other countries in the world, I look at what are their interests and are their interests counter to our interests.
So what would you say he is? to the United States? If you cannot say that he's an adversary or an enemy, what is Assad to the U.S.? What is the word?
You can describe it however you want to describe it.
I want to know how you describe it.
My point is that whether it is Syria or any of these other countries, we need to look at how their interests are counter to or aligned with.
Donald Trump, you remember back in 2017, the liberal cities were the resistance, the core of the resistance. What happened in 2024? You think of a major city in the United States, Donald Trump put up the best Republican performance for a Republican nominee for president in at least 20 years, if not the entire 21st century. We're talking about Chicago, Los Angeles, New York City, San Francisco. Across the map, Donald Trump put up historically strong numbers for Republican candidate, for president, in places that, truthfully, if you had asked me 8 years ago, I would have never thought possible.
Look at a map of New York City, biggest city in the country. Yeah. The big swings right, yes, it was in Manhattan, but it was also in other parts of the city. And that gives you a real sense of who it was driving the ship.
Yeah, exactly right. It was in the Bronx, it was in Queens, it was in Brooklyn. And if you break it down by racial areas, right, you look at the assembly district that has the most Asians in it, you see a massive shift. A massive shift. Look at this. Donald Trump gaining 27 points versus where he did 4 years ago. The highest Hispanic percentage in an assembly district, a 25-point shift. Highest black percentage for an assembly district, a 6-point shift. What's going on is if 2017 or 2016 was the election of the white working class moving over to the Republican ranks, the 2024 election was Trump doing historically well with minority voters.
There's a lot of people. First of all, it's important to note that Democrats, oftentimes when we lose elections, we think that we lost people to Trump. And that is true in circumstances, but they don't look enough at the fact that we also lost people to the couch. Mm-hmm. We have two people that we're running against. So a lot of people say, this is why I voted for you and Trump. And some people say this is why I didn't vote or didn't vote top of the ticket.
Right. Skip the top of the ticket, which, by the way, there's been a lot of paranoia about the fact that Democrats were able to win statewide in some places while Kamala Harris lost. And I keep trying to tell people there are voters who go in and either just vote the top, Trump voters who will say, I just want Trump and don't care about Republicans, and the reverse, who say, I'm not voting top of the ticket, but I'll vote everybody else.
Right, right. And I think we saw some of that happen as well. But when it comes to people who split their ticket, I think a lot of people cited several different things. One is there is universal frustration in this country. Much of it, I actually think, justified, that is raging at a political establishment that centers corporate interests, billionaires, and puts their needs ahead of the needs of working Americans. And we know that we can either channel this righteous rage, because there are people whose SNAP was cut off, their child tax credits were cut off, but they're seeing people like Elon Musk getting tax breaks and kissing up to Donald Trump in order to do so.
But they vote for, then why vote for Elon Musk and Donald Trump?
And I think that, of course, is the question.
It makes no sense.